Welcome back to another captivating episode of Business, Bourbon, and Cigars. This is the podcast where we uncover the strategies and insights and stories behind successful leaders. I'm your host, Scott Joseph, and today I am delighted to introduce our esteemed guest, Bill Klehm. He's the chairman and CEO of eBliss. He's a visionary leader who's going to bring a wealth of experience in e-mobility, transportation, and for me, most importantly, business innovation. So I want you to join us as we explore visionary leadership, which is truly an art form, as we talk about how to navigate business through uncharted waters and discover the essential qualities that drive success in an ever-evolving landscape. So, Bill, welcome to the show.
Scott, thank you so much for having me. It's just been it's been a joy getting to know you and being on this podcast and being a participant in your adventures. It's been fantastic. So thank you.
So I want to say this show is sponsored by Me Plus Ultra. You are our first Me Plus Ultra member that's actually has been on the show. And so I want full transparency with that. And so because it's probably going to come up at some point throughout this. But I love having you as a member of the group, of the mastermind group, because you bring just a wealth of knowledge. And every time you talk, people listen. You're like E.F. Hutton. So,
thank you, Scott.
Well, that's what we want to fill the room with, right? Because anybody that's in there, everybody's got their own superpowers and we can all learn from each other. So today we're going to learn a lot from you when it comes to vision, especially when we talk about going through uncharted waters, because not that e-bikes have not been around, but the way you're doing it and the way you're navigating it is different. It's new. It's a different approach, and I love it. So share with us, before we get into all that, let's share with the audience your journey. How did you come about all this?
Yeah. So when I had this great opportunity, I worked for Ford Motor Company for a long time, and I had just an amazing base of business. And I learned a lot about what is functional excellence and how businesses work, what brands do, all those things. And then I decided I hadn't done enough silly things in my life. So I decided to start a company. So I started a company around a piece of mechanical technology, and I raised I never raised money before in my life, and nobody told me it was supposed to be hard. So I raised $165 million through 356 investors, and everybody looked at me like I was a Martian because I didn't know it was supposed to be that hard. And it was, but we got it done. So my vision was, I had a great chance to work inside of Ford, and I achieved my goals that I had set for myself when I first joined the company. I love the Ford Motor Company, still drive the product. But I realized that there was some more things out there for me to do, and I wanted to make impact, and I wanted to have influence. And so I decided a long time ago, wherever I was going to go put my efforts, it was going to be able to make a sustaining impact on the environment that I was in, and then to have influence other people to be able to join and do those things and either do it themselves on their own journey or to join me with my journey. And so that actually became the thing that drove me. A very long time ago, when I was my first job at Ford, I had a boss, and he told me that if I did one thing in my career, I'd be successful. And that is, if I looked to make a sustaining difference to my area of responsibility, and that sustaining difference outlasted my tenure in the job, the longer it outlasted, the more impact and successful you were going to be. So if that thought process and those words stuck with me, I can physically tell you what shirt he was wearing when he told me, because that's what kind of an impact it had on me. And I still carry that with me. So I started making transmissions. We built an interesting patent portfolio of 800 patents and 16,000 patent claims, had a licensing business. But then we also made transmissions for the burgeoning e-bike business in Europe. So my technology and my product was on some of the first e-bikes that set the standard for the experience of riding a bike in Europe. And if any of your listeners have been to Europe and been to Holland, lots of people ride bikes, and that's kind of the mode of transportation. And so we won in Europe, like we became the standard. And so that got me looking then at what was going to be in the United States. And after that business transitioned out and moved on, I was approached by the partner that was making the transmissions for me as a contract manufacturer. And he said, Bill, e-bike, we got to start an e-bike business. So I looked around, I dropped myself back into it. And then we said, let's go. So we built an e-bike business here in the US. The other thing one of the things I've always found on my journeys is when I find an idea or a project or a product, I want to find the channel of distribution where the market makes the most money. So where is the most value created? And then can you deploy your product or service into that value chain? Because those people will invest more because they have more disposable capital to be able to go. And that's always been one of my successes, is finding those channels of distribution, those seams in the market, and then being fearless. Once you know it, stick your foot on the accelerator and jam it, because that's the other thing that I find entrepreneurs, they hesitate, right? And they don't learn. And by the way, Scott, when I come to your events, right, one of the things that I do learn, and you made gracious comments about me contributing. One of the things I learn is I learn from all these other entrepreneurs who have those same mindsets and who do that. And you've been able to bring together that collection of people. And so that's been great for me to learn. So again, it was find that seam, that channel of distribution, and then stick your foot on the accelerator and don't be afraid to go.
Two things stand out. I'll start first with a comment and then a question. You said something very early on that, to me, early in my career when I was building sales teams and I used to notice this trend, and so I used to pre-frame them when they first started on, especially if they were new to sales. Mm-hmm. You said, I didn't know it was hard, and I raised $165 million. So many entrepreneurs come out of the gate with virtually no experience in something, right? Salespeople, it doesn't matter what it is.
Totally.
But you're so excited, right? You believe so much in what you're doing. You want to make an impact. You want to make a difference. That you succeed in spite of yourself in that sense, right? And then all of a sudden we get just a little bit of experience, 20 times more than what we had when we started with all this success. And then the world starts punching you in the face, right? And your nose gets bloody a little bit. And all of a sudden, here I am. I'm going to go back to some sales reps, right? Here they are 2 months later with all kinds of more experience. Uh-huh. And now they can't set the same amount of appointments. They're closing. And it's not because all it is right here, totally. Right? It's all in their mind, totally. What they believe, and what an empowering belief becomes a limiting belief. And so I got two questions, actually.
Sure.
The first is that had to happen to you at some point throughout this process, raising that kind of money. Mm-hmm. How did you not allow getting punched in the face? What was there a technique? What was it? What kind of mindset other than, I know the easy answer is I just didn't let it get to me.
It always gets to you.
What did you do to overcome it?
So I think, you said this a minute ago. Many times we create our own roadblocks because we overthink things. And listen, it's start simple, move fast, think big. That's been my life, right? Start with something simple, move incredibly fast, but always keep your eye on the prize and think big. And the first thing I did was believed in myself, because I knew I was doing the right things. I knew the business model. I knew the patent strategy. I knew all of these things were right. I just had to have confidence. And so again, raising money is this interesting phenomenon. It's a numbers game, right? Getting the right amount of meetings, getting the right, it's just a percentage basis, just like it is in sales. It's a sales job. And I knew that, and I just had to stay focused on it. And I also would tell you that I had some wonderful advisors around me, and I had a group of people that you listen to. I had to listen to them. One of the things I try and believe in myself is I'm a learn-it-all guy, not a know-it-all guy. I've seen a lot of things. I've been involved in a lot of really cool situations and run interesting businesses. but I always learn. I learn every single day, and I always go for that learning. So one, believe in myself. Two, believe in my team. So if I put the right people in place, believe in them. And then don't be afraid to stick your foot on the accelerator and go.
Yeah.
Listen, Scott, I wallow in these things every once in a while. You're just like, are you kidding me? Right. But if you just kind of think about where you are, and then also, Scott, look at the journey you've just been on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the first meeting I was in was a very wealthy family, and I sat in their office, I sat in their home, and the guy asked me, okay, what is it going to take for you to leave your job and start this company? What's it going to take? And I go, well, I need $1 million. And he wrote me a check for $1 million and handed it to me. And I looked at the guys that are with me, and I said, I didn't ask for enough money. I just,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get any pushback at all. So, so again, Scott, I think that it's believing in yourself, and it's not overthinking. We all create our own problems so many times, me included. So anyways, that's kind of my answer.
100%. And so you kind of answered my second question a little bit. You talked about leaders and mentors that you've worked with. I mean, you're talking about all these patents, and I mean, you've never built an e-bike before this, right? All right. So it isn't like I started a marketing agency. That was my first business, right? Well, back then in 91, that was direct mail. That's about as easy of a business, and the way I look at it, as you can start.
Right.
You're starting this is a global business that involves manufacturing and all these patents and everything. Where'd you learn all this stuff? Was it, how did you not allow, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs might have big dreams.
Sure.
And then they start thinking, yeah, but I don't know how to do this, or this.
So so first of all, I had this wonderful journey inside of Ford. So I did tours of duty in sales, marketing, finance, operations. I took advantage of all those things. By the way, it was very uncommon for a Ford college graduate to go to finance. All of my peers said, "Oh my God, you're going to die. You're going to accounting, bean counter land." Listen, I took advantage of every single learning. I built relationships with the controller of Ford Motor Company, the CFO. I built a brand in that because I added value. I looked for ways to learn. I actively participated. And so, Scott, I learned, right? I'm a learn it all guy. The first time I got a factory, I flew to Buffalo, New York to visit my factory, and it was some of the best people I've ever worked with in my life. I loved those people, but the place was terrible. Like I was like, we bought this, somebody gave this to me to run. And I remember I called my dad one night. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and I'm still in the factory. And in Buffalo, New York, it's snowing. It's just miserable. I called my dad and I said, Dad, I don't know if I can do this. Dad, I just don't know. And my dad said, Bill, they wouldn't have given you a job if they didn't think you could do it. You're a smart guy. And he hangs up the phone. That was the advice I got.
Yeah.
But I would tell you, Scott, that's, it's just these learning. And then the other thing is, and you kind of alluded to in your question, but it's also finding people around you and putting trusted people around you that you can listen to and committing to those relationships, and really trying to understand how they can help and how you can help them. And it's a massive, you create a network, right? These are all about creating these powerful networks. Listen, I learned manufacturing because I had to go fix a factory and I had a bad one to fix and we fixed it. My team did. I was the enabler, but they did the work. And those learnings, those painful learnings apply to making anything, right? Every single problem is people, process, or money, right? So you break down what problem you have, and then you break it down into those steps and you just go.
I was talking to a business owner. I'm glad how you just said that. I was talking to a business owner yesterday who had just lost their biggest client. And so I'm not a consultant. I bring people together, right? I try to facilitate them working together to find great solutions, new ideas, breakthroughs. But I'm talking to this person, and I love giving my opinion and sharing ideas.
Sure.
And So they're telling me about how over the next 2 to 3 months, they're doing this, this, and this, and they're going to recap. This is what they got to do to, I guess, recover that revenue from other sources, right? Other clients. And so my first question was, well, this should be a lesson to you. First off, if it was that easy to replace your biggest client inside of 2 to 3 months, why weren't you just prospecting and constantly growing the business anyways, right? And so
I'm sure that was an uncomfortable response.
well, here was the answer, and it goes back to business processes and
People,
and
process,
money
and
and
money.
stuff. Yeah. And so this person goes, well, our supplier, we were at capacity, and if we had brought on new business, we would not have been able to complete the work or the quality of the work. There were concerns there. They were at full capacity. And I said, well, then you never stop going after new business. You just have a different problem that is a process problem at this point. The question and issue you have is, how do I continue to grow the business in a big, huge way and expand our capacity to be able to deliver on our promise without sacrificing quality, right? Or the results of the work. But it's funny, we get, I don't want to say complacent, but we think sometimes we don't look at problems like that. We look at problems, and so there's always a problem.
Always. That's business.
Right? This business was cranking along. Now they recognize the problem. Oh gosh, we're losing money, or we're losing a huge customer. Let's go get it. But the real issue all along was, man, we could have kept growing this thing to where that big customer loss wouldn't have impacted us.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And so when you said business, processes and all that
type, money, right? Yeah.
It just came right into my mind. So talk to me when you're first starting this and you make the decision, you've done your research and you're like, this is a good market opportunity, right? And I love what you said, because we'll talk a little bit about legacy towards the end of this thing. You wanted to make an impact, you said.
Yep.
What had to happen? What got you to where you became real passionate to where, like, I love what I'm doing? And more importantly, what did you want to accomplish with eBliss in terms of really separating yourselves from everybody else?
Yeah. So a couple things. So great question. So first and foremost, the recognition that 119 million times a day an individual gets in a car and drives, and 29 million of those are a mile. And so I realized that a third of the time an individual gets into a vehicle in America every day, a third of those times, they only drive a mile. So I said, if we could do nothing more than change that mile decision, if we could do nothing more than that, we would physically change the environment, because that's the dirtiest time for a car to drive, right? 1 mile, cars aren't made to go a mile, right? They're made to get 60 miles an hour and drive for a long time. That's what they're made for. They're not made to drive a mile and stop. So they pollute the most, they burn the most fuel, all that stuff happens. So I said, you know what? We could make the biggest impact if I do nothing else but own the mile. So that was the one thing I thought. And then the second thing is I asked myself the question, is it doable? Right? And how big is this going to be, right? What kind of a business, the other business that I had for the intellectual property business, right? I had a set of goals for that, for what success looked like. What does success look like for me here? 15% market share in North America would be my top piece of goal. That would be my top piece. So it isn't like I'm trying to get 100%. So can I get the most profitable 15 points? Because that's where I want to live. And could I create a channel of distribution that would support me? And so as I went down that and I just created that, what I call believability index, I talked myself into it. And then what I did is I have an inner circle of friends, kitchen cabinet kind of people that through my career I talked to. And so I called them on the phone and I sold them on the business. What do you guys think? And there wasn't anybody who said dumb idea. lot of people asked really good questions, which is what I wanted. But that's really what I had to go through. Is I had to go through that in my mind. And then once you decide that, then Scott, you ask yourself the question, where are you going to start? Right? What are you going to start with? You're going to start with market development. You're going to start with your product. And so what I decided was I wanted to start with product, and I wanted to make a product that was going to be a no excuses product. That's the first thing I wanted to make. I wanted to make a product. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, when you say no excuses, what do you mean by that?
I mean, so today, e-bikes are toys, right? They aren't an engineered system the way I'm used to cars, right? Cars, 63,000 components inside of an typical internal combustion engine vehicle. 7 or 8 subsystems. These things are tested massively, right? The majority of development time on a vehicle program is testing and validation. So that's the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to make a product that consumers, 85% of the maintenance is gone. I don't want customers worried about the chain falling off and I know the cable unstripping, right? All the stuff that is what I call excuses. I wanted to get rid of all the excuses. I want to see if I could do that affordably. Then the second thing I wanted to do, so I did a survey a very long time ago in Holland when we launched the transmission business. I went into 1,000 people's homes and I asked these Dutch families, the whole family sitting down. I said, tell me the 3 things on your decision to buy a bike or an e-bike. What are the 3 drivers? First driver was the quality of the seat because they rode 18 kilometers to and from work. And that includes the cockpit, right? So the touch points, high quality, that they felt that. The second one was the quietness of the drivetrain, and the third one was maintenance. And so I made those my universal truths for this. I wanted to make a bike affordably in the US that fit those things, that I could sit in front of anybody who's going to be buying one of these things and give them the assurance. Maintenance is only brake pads and tires, right? Those things I can't get rid of yet, but I'm going to work on it. So that's what I wanted to be able to do, is to make a no excuses bike or a vehicle.
You know what? And I know this is not what you meant when you said simple and fast, but simple is great. And what you've done is you've built a higher quality bike by simplifying a lot of things.
Absolutely.
And so I love simple, well, you know him, another member of our group, Michael Porro, he loves to say simple gets done, right? And so
totally.
I absolutely love that. So, all right. So what do you think are the key qualities when it comes to visionary leadership?
So I think there's a bunch of different categories of visionary leadership depending upon what you're doing. So visionary leadership in just a pure science world is just being able to understand. So first of all, the universal truth is you have to be able to communicate. So it doesn't matter if you have a vision, but your ability to take and communicate it down into basic principles so everybody can digest what your vision is, that's really important. So that's the number one thing you got to be able to have. And then to what degree that is depending upon where you're trying to deploy vision. So I think communication is key. I think making sure that one of the things I always talk about is, does the lowest person, the guy who's the maintenance human being who sweeps the floor at nighttime, the nighttime security guy, does everybody in the business, can everybody talk about your vision? Does everybody buy into it? So the deeper you can get that vision inside the organization, the more powerful the organization is, because you don't have to explain the basics. And one of the things that I like to talk about is creating community. Community means that shared vision. That's a first step in community. And so for me, like when we do dealership implementations, the first thing we do is every single person in the store rides the bikes. Everybody experiences the product, because it isn't just one salesperson then. Now it's your entire community pushing your product out there. And because this is a brand new thing inside of a dealership that they used to 4 wheels driving around, getting them comfortable with that quickly drives the power.
I like to talk. It's easy. First off, it's not easy saying what you just said, to be able to articulate your vision and get it throughout the company, even in great times when things are just rolling smooth.
Totally.
But when you're going through times of trouble or uncertainty, And I'll use uncertainty in your situation because it's a brand new company.
Sure.
You had to raise the money, and we haven't even talked about how you plan to distribute this yet. So we can talk about that because that's definitely uncertain, right? So talk to us about, explain what you're doing that's different from a distribution standpoint, but then how do you lead your team through that uncertainty? Because it's not been done before.
So I think one
In mass, I should say.
sure, I understand
Yeah.
that. So I think one is, can you communicate it effectively enough that the believability index around the details can be explained? So can I explain the functional details to somebody? So connect the strategy down to the execution. And the more you can do that deeper in the organization, the more it becomes believable and everybody does their job. Because that's really, once you set that vision and set those tactics, the most important thing is execution. And then so sticking to it. The other thing I would say is, and you're totally right, it's a thankless, tireless, you have to be tireless to be communicating with people. That doesn't mean, you throw somebody an email. That's not communicating with them. Sending them a text is not. Having a meaningful dialogue with them about their concerns, answering their questions, linking their contribution to the rest of the team, reinforcing that, finding what buttons are important to them, what drives these people, super important. So investing time. My wife will say, I live on my phone because I'm constantly checking in with everybody. I'm constantly bringing them together. The other thing I talk about in business is no surprises. In fact, I had a little plaque I put on my desk when I was at Ford, no surprises. I don't give surprises. I don't want surprises, right? So that's what I tell investors, employees, everybody else, because nothing spoils a big parade like, oh my God, I forgot to, surprise, right? And everybody hates that. Even, by the way, good news surprises. People say, I want to surprise you with good news. I actually disagree. I think having the whole team be involved in the good news and bringing them along, right, and having somebody else share the good news, it actually brings power. If you let other people share that, they get more excited about it and they become more of an advocate for you. The deeper they feel like they're a part of that team. So Scott, it's really around this notion of inclusion. I love plurality. I love differences of opinion. I think that makes us great as a country. But making sure everybody feels like their contribution, their work, even if they're totally off base, right? Even if they're coming up with, we're going to the moon tomorrow or some ridiculous thing. It's really around exploring, why do you think that, right? Let's bring them to this table.
Did that come naturally to you, or is that like, because I asked because that does not come naturally to me. I could tell you early in my career, this is the way we need to do it. And I overpowered my team.
Scott, after, having stared into the abyss more than one time, and you're looking and the abyss stares back, famous book, you learn that you got to have these people with you. If you lose, if you lose the boat, right? If you lose the team, you lose the boat. So the most important thing to do is to keep the team, because belief is a powerful thing. It's the combination of all these people together believing with what they know and them coming along for that ride. You can do a lot of stuff, right? You can change the planet. Think about how fast viral things go out there, right? Think about today how fast you can deploy and get messages out there. If you can create that common community, that common message and do that, you can change industries. Like, you can change industries quickly. Again, just look at the political situation, look at all these things, and look at how these messages go out there and changes public opinion so fast. So Scott, you have to just decide you're going to stick to this. And you got to stay on it, no matter what other noise is flying around you. You got to just stay with it.
How important, and talk to me about how you cultivate innovation. So I think what you've done in terms of the product you've built is innovative.
Mm-hmm.
but that's you, right? How have you cultivated this innovative approach throughout the organization? And innovation comes in a lot of different ways.
Totally.
It can be the product you're manufacturing, how you're manufacturing it, how you're I mean, there's all kinds of different ways. Talk to me about how you encourage that or try to build that.
So I'll give you a specific example. So, Dave Boyle and I have worked together in the past. So he's runs our e-bike business through auto dealers, and Dave came up with the idea to say, let's get Petra, who already has 5,000 dealers, to distribute these products. They're already in the stores, right? Because one of the problems was physically moving this box that has weird weight distribution and getting that thing into a dealership perfectly. And so that innovative distribution was super powerful, right? We just disconnected one of the biggest problems in the industry, and that is getting inventory close to the dealer, close to the retailer, but not overwhelming them with too much inventory, but being able to do that artfully. That little innovation. So you're right. Innovation comes in multiple levels. It comes at the product level, then it comes at the execution level, then it comes in the service level, right? And so having them be motivated to also do the service side of that. Just think about what consumers, all these problems that they currently have, right? All these bikes that get sold online that show up broken and everything else. If you can eliminate that, your level of satisfaction and hitting your brand promise, a brand is a promise that's kept, right? So always is around that brand. We're always going to be there, right?
It can also be a promise that's not.
It can be, but we're not going to do that. So,
that's right.
that doesn't happen. But anyway, so innovation, you're right. Innovation has to happen at multiple levels to make this thing truly sticky. I presented our company to another large manufacturer on Sunday. I flew to LA for lunch and I had a meeting with this manufacturer who's in a competitive space. And I presented what we're doing to him and his bankers, completely blown away. Yeah. What blew him away was we built it so fast, because we announced this in December and we're shipping bikes to dealers. We have 600 hand raisers already in 4 months. So when you get that kind of pull, now you need to be careful, right? You don't jump too deep, right? And then you need to find the right guys. But this innovation, this artfulness that we've put together, from a product to the execution to all those details, to me, it all has to, it's like music, right? It's like conducting an orchestra. All of these people have to come together. Otherwise the music sounds terrible.
Yeah, you touched on something there, and I don't want to pass over this.
Sure.
Because I think it crosses every vertical. Any entrepreneur, it can sometimes be very challenging to turn down business. You just said you've got all these hand raisers, you want to get the right people. Let's talk about the importance of that, especially when you're introducing, whether it's a new product, a new company, whatever it might be, right? Getting the right, I guess, nucleus of clients, salespeople, employees, production. It doesn't matter what you're doing, right? It's critical in every area. So talk to us, like, what is the right fit in for you guys, and why is that important to you?
So I always think about a concentration of mass and force around whatever you're doing. So whatever you're going to do, you only have so many resources. So focus them down on the right distribution partners. Who's the right distribution partner? The dealer group that we're launching with right now, they set up a separate LLC. They're doing a store within a store in 6 dealerships. They're 85 years in business. Their whole family is in this. They're all in, right? They've set up their entire business around us. So now, Scott, my confidence is we're lined, right? So our objectives are lined up, and now we're connected. I don't have to paint him a picture about some of these little details, because as he said to me, we'll figure that out. Like, you guys got a great product. We got a great message. We got everything else we'll go figure out. A lot of people have raised their hand and said, "Oh, I'm really interested in this." And then when you sit in front of them, they say, "Well, if they don't sell, can you are going
Yeah.
to take them back, right? And I'm just like, okay, love you, but for the first wave, you're not going to be one of these guys that's going to be
No.
shoulder to shoulder with us, right? Locking arms, because we're going to go figure stuff out. So
That's right.
the first set of humans that we're going to have in this system, we're going to be working together as a group. I can see us having weekly conference calls across all of the stores and saying what's working, what's not working. That's the community that has to be created. The other thing that I felt with these guys is they want to get their entire dealership family involved. They said something. They said, you know what, running a car dealership used to be fun. We used to have fun running these family stores. Not as much anymore.
Yeah.
And they are viewing this as the ability to bring spark, to bring some fun back in their store, to bring another level of community back in their store. And again, Scott, those things that gets me crazy excited that you've got that kind of momentum that you've created.
Yeah. I think when you said the words all in, to me, that's critical. Think about that. I want an employee that's all in on a new project we're doing, a new process we're doing. I can't have an employee that we all agree that, hey, this is our process. We think it's going to improve quality of our product or our client experience, whatever it might be. And then you've got one or two with 1 foot in, 1 foot kind of like, and then, behind the scenes as you're building the house, hammering all the nails, they're going right behind you, pulling them out. Right. So,
or telling you how to hit them. So I always think about people, they're either participants or prisoners, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to be, if you're a participant in the process, then you're going to join the journey. If you're a prisoner in the process, which means you may be in, but you don't really want to be there and you aren't going to contribute as you're saying. So again, I view everybody as you're either a part of the solution or you're a part of the problem. So what I want to make sure is for this first group of 10, 15, store groups, right, with more stores than that, but let's say 10 to 15, groups, I just want to get into a partnership with them. And by the way, we're also learning about which stores, kind of what are the sub psyches in there, what are their kind of geographies, what are their issues around the country. So we're starting to learn that, and there's a bunch of common denominators that are starting to come through. And Dave called me just before I did this video, and he did a call with this. It was a relatively rural Subaru store, and the guy's like, "This is like an amazing idea. Like, I love this." And he's selling Dave on why he should be the guy. he's selling Dave, and Dave calls me on the phone. He goes, "Bill, he goes, I may be jinxing myself, but this is starting to get too easy. We've identified that surrogate, that archetype of customer that we now know wants this, right? And quite frankly, needs it, right? Because again, when you look at the big stores with all of their resources and everything else, I mean, they're a churn and burn shop. I mean, they've got to move metal. Otherwise, their fixed cost eats them from their floor plan and service in general. But for the smaller guys who rely on another $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in revenue, with a great margin, and they already have these incredibly passionate customers, so they stay in business because their customers love them. Perfect guy for us, right? We'll sell them their whole transportation set of equipment.
Well, the auto business is something I know very well. So I also look at it as I can invest a fraction of what I'd have to as a dealer, right? I can invest a fraction of what I'd have to invest in a car, new or used.
Yes.
Make the same amount of money. But how about this? I also tie up a heck of a lot less real estate doing it, right? And in other words, I can get a lot more of that inventory that I'm paying less for, and as I stack them and line them up. So my real estate cost is what I'm making per square foot, I guess, in that building that there's museums they're made to or forced to build, is much more profitable as well. You said something you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to get into this because I think it plays a key role. What role do you think like strategic partnerships, collaborations, you've already mentioned a couple, play in driving, like say, whether it's innovation or growth, especially in today's environment?
Totally. So just a small story. So the patent portfolio that I built, I licensed to Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies. That was my past business. One of the things we created is a thing called collective development, in which each customers and their development of our technology, they owed us a duty to grant us back those improvements or what they learned, and then we shared them with the group. And so my total $250-300 million of development that we put into the company, that was multiplied times 4 because all these other companies were developing along with us and we got all their improvements. So this collaboration and creating this group, this collective, these things are hugely important. So what I spend a lot of my time on managing strategic relationships, because my job is to get that other company, that other person, to invest disproportionately in the relationship with us, because that disproportionate investment will drive the value for all of us and the collective. And so making sure that, again, no surprises, everybody loves the economics, everybody's making money, making sure all those things happen and reinforcing that is hugely important. When I was CEO at NewGen and we had 7,000 car dealers, one of the things I used to talk about is that it was our job to remind the dealer every day how much money we made for them, because the dealers don't know. And unless you remind them every day, every month, how much money you made for them, and they, by the way, and if they believe it, which is you have to create the believability index, but if they believe it, you become our drop-off rate, our cancellation rate was close to 0, as long as we explained how much money we're making with our strategic partners.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, I've said it a million times, the audience is probably like just exhausted with me saying this, but I'm going to say it every time it makes sense. Number one mistake I made was not forging connections, strategic alliances, and the right type of relationships with people that could have vaulted me up and shortened my learning curve. I think in my younger days, maybe too immature, too competitive, greedy, whatever it might have been, thinking I can do all this myself. I'll learn it. Not thinking, wow, it's going to take me 5 times. I'm thinking I'm getting more, but I'm getting less, right?
Sub-optimizing yourself. Completely agree with you.
Correct. And so that's one of the reasons I asked that question. But, let's look at your operation. You brought up Petra, and it's really about an ecosystem. I mean,
it's a network. Yes.
And so we brought up you being a member of Me Plus Ultra. Well, so is Arnold Casita, the CEO, president, owner of Petra Automotive Products. And I love the spider web and the ecosystem that has kind of emerged through all this stuff, and just seeing, gosh, when you put smart people together, 1 + 1 does not equal 2.
No. So Scott, and I've said this to you before, but the interesting part of your group in particular is you have this natural collaboration, these environments you create that people start to talk and start to listen. Because that's the other thing is, like, once as Arnold we started to talk about this, Arnold asked clarifying questions. No, how many of these things we're going to sell? What's the dollar value? So Arnold said, well, this could be amazing for my distributors, right? Because it wasn't just for him. It was for him helping his customers make money. That was in his mindset, because if he can create a more healthy environment for his system, then it goes there. But it comes back to the fact that I wouldn't have had that meeting if it not been for Me Plus Ultra and Business Bourbon and Cigars. We wouldn't have had that meeting.
Wow. Well, appreciate that. Let me ask you this question. I never take that stuff well. I should take that better.
You should say just say thank you and move on. That's it.
Thank you. How do you leverage change and turn it into a competitive advantage. That's the way I want to say it. How you take something that's changing, right, and turn it into a competitive advantage, especially when things are moving so fast.
Yeah. So one of the things I talk about all the time is how much time I spend working in the business versus working on the business. And my job is to work on the business 80% of the time and in the business 20% of the time.
Yes.
And that's where I need to get to, because my job is to anticipate change and to forward plan for that change. That's my job. Provide the correct amount of capital in the strategic direction and to anticipate and to get the company ahead of change. I spend a ton of time just constantly thinking about that. That's the lonely part of these jobs, is because I can't distract my team with a bunch of these things that I'm worried about are coming or I'm planning for. I have to be able to work with my other advisors and in a vacuum out in front of this, because otherwise, you get eaten by those changes. Are insidious sometimes. You don't realize that they're happening underneath the table. But regulatory changes, what happens when administrations change and everything goes. How are you going to plan for those things? Again, as a small company, I have to rely on my team to do the basics so I can then spend time out in front of the business.
So you said it can be lonely at the top. I live in Louisville. I love the bourbon, and I love the whole theater of really good bourbon. Not theater, but like the process,
Yes,
right? Of having a nice, good bourbon, good cigar with it. And of course, along with that, I sit back and, living in Louisville, I'm 2.5 hours from Nashville. And so I like my country. I like all kinds of music, but, depends on my mood. There's a great country song that addresses being lonely at the top. Do you know it? It's called Lonely at the Top.
Okay.
So it's called Lonely at the Top. And the follow-up line is, but it's a bitch at the bottom.
Listen, I completely agree with you. Everybody has a role to play. So, and that's why complaining about where I am is not useful. So I don't complain about it. This is just it. But again, you shook your head when I said this. You got to force yourself as a CEO to be able to stay on the business, not in the business, because so many times people dive right to the bottom, and it's very difficult to pull out of that. And then it also, quite frankly, then you've made adjustments in the business that your team doesn't own, right? Yep. So now it's your plan, not That's their right. plan. And so this is a big part of what I learned through my career, is that you have to do that, because I had all these operational jobs and I did all these things. I know, like, drop me into whatever and I can figure it out, because I've seen a lot of it. But I now need to be the coach, not the player. And that's where I spend quite a bit of my time asking questions. Go ahead.
You know what the other problem is when you're in it too much? You really run the risk of stifling innovation.
Totally agree.
Because when you're in the business, especially in levels you should not be, you're sitting there thinking of, and you have to think about the capacity of your employees. I get that. But no business every business has to be thinking about what's next 5 steps, 10 steps ahead and driving forward. But when you're a CEO or owner and you're constantly in it, trying to get things done, and then all of a sudden you have an employee or a client that comes to you with a great idea, you're blind to it because all you can think about is, man, that's going to put this much amount of work on me. I'm going to have to do this. I've already done this, this, and this. I'd have to change it to this, this, and this. And you run the risk of not wanting to move forward with something that could be a breakthrough.
Totally. And then what happens the next time that employee's got another great idea? They don't even bring it.
Correct. They don't
bring it, right?
That's right.
So again, it's I work really hard to get people to participate and over communicate. Like I do stand-ups twice a week. I round robin with everybody. I have one-on-ones, and but the most of those are for me listening, right? It's if I'm, again, 80% listening, 20% talking, then I'm in better shape. Because I also need to know how people think about things. Critical thinking and multi-level, multi-dimensional thinking, you want to be able to know how your team does that, because as this business is accelerating really quickly, right? I've done this now twice before. This is going to go really fast.
Yeah.
And if I don't have people that can critically think to that next level now, right? I'm replacing them, right? And then that's a waste of time. So what is the preparation, not for preparing them for where we are today, but I need to prepare them for $50 to $80 million in revenue and in 50 dealerships. That's where we need to be preparing for. And so them thinking about those problems is what we spend quite a bit of time for, because if they've thought about that, then the 1, 2, and 3 become natural and easy. But then again, now I can go to the next step, and what do we got to do to get to 300?
So, I think anything technology related, we always talk about the world and the marketplace moving so fast, but I think technology probably leads that, right? And so how do you stay ahead of all this stuff? How do you stay on top of, like, it's one thing to have vision and constantly working on what's next for you, but how do you stay ahead of the entire marketplace and kind of like learning all this new stuff and keeping up with it and trying to stay ahead of it all?
Yeah. So, me personally, I read voraciously.
Yeah.
I work out every day, and, I try and row 10 or 12,000 meters a day. And when I'm doing that, I'm always listening to what's the next thing, podcast, something else. But then in the mornings when I get up, the first thing I do is read every periodical I can get my hands on to kind of set the stage for what's happening around me. Because one of the things I watch for trends and words. I watch for themes that people are talking about in the marketplace. So how many times am I seeing, e-bikes and e-bike safety, whatever the theme is, right? I start to record that in my head about how I'm seeing that. So that also gives me a bit of a sense of what's happening. Anyways, it's just this. If you decide you're going to do these things, and I encourage everybody to follow their dreams and find these things, you have to decide you're going to be an expert with yourself. And that doesn't mean you know everything, but this means that you're committed to the journey of learning as much as possible every single day.
I just interviewed a guest. His name is Jonathan Green. And one of his sole focuses is constantly looking at new technologies, especially in the AI world. And I asked him a similar question. How's he stay ahead of this? And I forget the exact name of some of the AI he uses. He uses AI to help filter a lot of this stuff to you. So I'm going to get you as soon as that episode publishes, which it's not out yet.
Please.
By the time people hear this one, it will have, because it literally happened just right before yours. So, but there's a stage in there towards the second half of it where he talks about that, and it makes it very easy, or at least him, to stay focused on just what he wants to stay focused on, and to stay ahead of those things. So he constantly learns. But I'll pass that on to you. I'll go back and look at the transcript.
That's a great idea. Those little time hacks, right? I mean, think about saving yourself 10 to 15 minutes a day.
That's right.
Think about, and again, that creates breathing room for you as a human being. So, Scott, absolutely appreciate that.
So here you are. You've got this new company. You've got this new distribution model. You've got a lot of new breakthrough, innovative, whether it's processes or ideas coming through. How do you balance innovation with risk management?
So when I did my other company for a long time, I had 2 areas of risk I managed. One was a technology risk, and 2 was execution risk. And I had to raise a ton of money because I had to solve both risk items, because money, properly organized money can help manage risk. in this business, what I said was, I'm going to manage one risk at a time. So let's manage execution risk. Execution risk is something people have been distributing products for 100 years or more. People have been making these kinds of devices. This isn't unobtainium. There's nothing rare earth in this. This is really basic stuff if you organize it correctly. So this is around managing one element of risk at a time. So for the last year, we wanted to manage the product risk, get the product right. If we got the product right, now I got distribution right. Now I'm just managing the execution at the auto dealer list risk. Yep. That's the risk I'm really managing. So I've now reduced my overall system level risk now down to something much more manageable and, quite frankly, affordable. And the other thing is, because I motivate people with margin in the system, like the Petra guys, they get paid to do something that's an attractive thing. Because we manage that, we give them, so then they're in the boat with us, helping to manage that risk. So it becomes much more self-managed because they make money at it. And so that's how I think about it, is I think about how many degrees of risk I'm willing to manage. And right now I'm focused on one, and that's execution risk.
What do you think separates the successful startups from the ones that struggle?
Well, I think every startup struggles. So, but
Yeah.
the ones that smash the wall. I think it's about creating that sustaining belief system through everybody, from your investors to your employees to your customers and the marketplace. I think success breeds success. I think it's an overused term, but I do agree with it. And I think the proper positioning of where you're going as a company and where you are as a business, I think, is really important. So I think that's the biggest thing is just staying true to that, and doing the right things every day. I think that's another big thing. People see people that don't do the right things and they take shortcuts and edge and don't tell the truth or whatever. For me, that's all risk, right? That's all another level of risk. And I just stick to our knitting and do what we say we're going to do. I think that's the best thing you possibly do when you got a great idea.
We talked a little bit about some of the events we had, and I can remember about 3 or 4 events ago with the Business Bourbon and Cigar leadership retreats. Yeah, Troy Duhan.
Oh yeah.
He talks a lot about legacy. What is the legacy you want to leave? And you've talked about the impact that you want to have with eBliss. What legacy do you hope to leave with it?
First of all, I would tell you that if I am in the middle, I am actually writing a book right now. So I'm writing a book about kind of my journey. And one of the things I talked about in the foreword in my book was I want to respect the legacy that brought me here. And I want to leave a legacy to my children. I lost a son 7 years ago, and that profoundly changed my life and my priorities on what success looks like. And success to me looks like creating that sustainable legacy. And so that's really what I want to leave, is I want to leave something for my children to be proud of, that their family was involved in something that made a difference in transportation. And I think that's part of the fuel that burns inside of me to get me up every day, to say, to show my children and their children, hopefully that you can actually do these things.
What advice would you give to all the aspiring entrepreneurs out there, business leaders, who really want to have a lasting impact, right, on their industry? What advice would you give them?
So first and foremost, one, follow your heart and follow your head. Don't let one get out of balance in front of the other. Just make sure that you're totally committed to what you're going to do, because you have to be durable to get through this. So just make sure you're managing your molecule. What are the 4 elements? What are the 4 things that matter most to you as an entrepreneur? What do you want to accomplish? And then write it down. I think that's the other thing that's a really good discipline is to kind of keep notes on what your goals are, keep notes on your journey, um, and then don't be afraid, right? I mean, as I said early on, you and I were joking about it, but we make up these fears in our lives. Many of them are unfounded, right? So really assess where you are and what kind of power you have around you. And then, like I said, one of the top things I find in people in business in general, entrepreneurs, big companies, small companies, is the fear to go. And once you know you're right, go. Just go JFDI, just freaking do it. I mean, that's really what you got to decide you're going to do.
Huge thank you to Bill Klehm for sharing his invaluable insights and wisdom on the art of visionary leadership. I want you to, if you want to learn more about eBliss and these bikes, they're beautiful. I have seen them in person. I've yet to see, Bill, anybody that's walked past them not stop and immediately, and they just sit there and talk about them they love them.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage you guys, and I want to make sure I get this right, ebliss.global, correct?
www.ebliss.global, correct.
Yeah. All right. So go there, visit, take a look at this team, and of course, you'll learn everything about the team and the company that Bill's built here. Unbelievable job today. Thank you very much. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, especially the 5-star ratings, and review Business Bourbon Cigars on your favorite podcast platform. So, because your feedback helps us continue to bring you engaging conversations with top industry leaders like Bill. So until next time, cheers to your success.